want to talk about some serious backlash tonight after a segment on MSNBC pokes fun at Mitt Romney's family photo, specifically zeroing in on Romney's African-American grandson, Kieran. Take a look.
Everybody loves a baby picture, and this was one that really a lot of people had emotions about this baby picture this year. This is the Romney family,
right?
And of course, there on Governor Romney's knee is his adopted grandson, who is an adopted African-American child, Kieran Romney, and he captions for this one.
One of these things is not. One of these things. Just isn't the same.
Former Republican Senator Scott Brown, who also happens to be a Fox contributor, wants an apology from MSNBC, while others on social media are blasting the network for being racist. Did the segment go too far? Anna Navarro, Mark Lamont Hill, both CNN political contributors, they join me now. I'm going to talk to you, but Anna first. Were you offended by that segment?
You know, first of all, Don, I'm not even sure what the threshold anymore is for MSNBC going too far. I did find it in absolutely bad taste. I think there's nothing funny about adoption, regardless of the color of the baby, regardless of the color of the family. At this time of year, if anything, we should be celebrating the fact that there are families all over America that open up their hearts to give love to children that need it. And I will tell you, speaking personally, my mother is adopted. There's all sorts of self-esteem issues that many adopted children and adults have, and I think it's just plain old mean. So it is a mean segment.
Hold on. But Anna,
Mark, what you're not buying into that.
I'm
you
not
think
buying into this at all. Here's my point. There's absolutely a line you shouldn't cross. And the line, I think, Anna, is you don't make fun of people's kids, you don't make fun of people being adopted, you don't mock the vulnerable. They didn't do any of those things.
Mark,
if they did those things, I'd be with you. And every time
they used the kid to mock Mitt Romney.
We use everything to mock Mitt Romney. Mocking Mitt Romney is a sport, and everyone mocks Mitt Romney across the aisle. I don't see anything wrong with that. They also joked about the lack of diversity in the Republican Party. They're also right about that. Again, they didn't make fun of the baby, which would be, like, for example, Sarah Palin, there were times where people on the left made fun of Sarah Palin's children and grandchildren. That was offensive. It was it was beyond the pale. It was unacceptable. This wasn't a case of this. We're making much ado about
hold on. Hang on. Anna, wait, I'm going to let you do that.
Okay,
but what if this was on Fox? What if this same segment was on Fox?
Oh my God,
and they did the same thing?
You're saying if somebody on Fox made fun of Mitt Romney?
If someone on Fox, if someone on Fox saying one of these things is not like the other to a black baby and a white family, what do you think would happen?
Again,
by now, Jesse Jackson would be protesting and tied to a tree somewhere. And let me just tell you this, Mark, if you don't want to hear what they said, that's one thing.
I heard what they said.
You know, what was the thing they pointed out? They weren't pointing out his perfect hair. They weren't pointing out his clothes. They weren't pointing out his perfect teeth. They were pointing out the little black grandkid on his right knee. That's what was the cause of the funny jokes, okay? But then they used to talk about GOP diversity.
Do you think
they were not talking about the scenery. They weren't talking about his wife. They were talking about the small child
I get what they were and weren't talking about. The point, though, is they weren't making fun of the kid. They were making fun of the Republican Party and maybe even Mitt Romney. Some would say maybe that it's an exploitative picture, that they're exploiting the kid by hauling out this.
So why the need to point out the little black grandchild?
Anna, just let me finish, and I promise you can still disagree with me. First of all, they didn't need to point out the kid was black. It was obvious in a room full of white people the baby was black. There was no need to point that out. They were pointing out the fact that the picture itself was sort of a spectacle, and they were sort of making fun of the Republican Party. I don't think they were making fun of the baby. If they were, I'd be right on your side. This was a light moment making fun of Mitt Romney. Was it the best joke? No, but it wasn't inappropriate.
Okay, so I want to talk about this because you and I have talked about this. A lot of hosts, a lot of people on MSNBC, that whole crowd, that whole sect, they criticize me a lot. I never respond because I never respond to colleagues' criticism because, well, I mean, why should I? Why should the
Fair enough.
Dogs are supposed to howl at the moon. The moon doesn't howl back. So here's the thing, though. Mark says, Stuart Stevens, a senior advisor to Mitt Romney's campaign in 2012, said this: MSNBC has become a club for the smug to go to exchange hateful opinions and reassure each other it's acceptable. He has a point with that.
I think in general he does. I don't think Melissa Harris Perry represents that. I think
Melissa Harris Perry was going to say that the kid was cute, isn't the baby cute?
And I think she was talking about Kanye West. Melissa,
yes, but
again, I don't think Melissa represents this point. I think she actually has some diversity. I think she's brilliant and amazing. But I think there are pockets of MSNBC which are echo chambers, which are smug and condescending, and it's just a bunch of people on the left, like myself, who all agree with each other. I don't think that makes for good TV, but I also don't think it's good.
Yeah, but a bunch of people on the left who all agree with each other, and it's not good. There's no diversity of opinion. It's a bunch of people on the left and saying mean, smug things about people who have a diversity may disagree with them.
I agree with you. I don't think Melissa just did that, but I think that often does happen on the network, and I think it's problematic. I think it's problematic.
You don't think that's how that segment came about? You don't think that if there was one person in the room that said, "Hey guys, maybe you might want to think about what if it was reversed? What if it was a bunch of white people sitting around making fun of it?"
I don't buy that argument. And this is the problem. We do this with race. We do this with politics. We always say, well, you know, Fox is the opposite of MSNBC, or black is the opposite of white, and they're not. It's not a fair argument. What Fox does and what MSNBC do are two different things. What black people do and what white people do are two different things. I don't think it's a fair comparison.
See, but then it's still, you can't say that it's okay if one group of people do it and it's...
Yes, you can. That's where we always disagree. You always say, well, if white people can't do it, then nobody can do it.
I don't always say that. You can't have two separate standards for people. If that was
No, it's the same standard. It's a different context.
All right, Don, how about letting me get into this conversation?
Go ahead.
Look, all of us have friends who were part of that panel. Dean was part of that panel. He's a friend of yours. He's a friend of mine. I emailed him this afternoon to tell him, not a fan of that joke you told. There are sometimes people try to be funny on TV, and it comes across not the way you intended it. It comes across in bad taste. This was one of those times. I think you have to be in absolute denial not to recognize that what they were calling attention to was the fact that there was a little black baby on Mitt Romney's right knee. I mean, look at the transcripts. Just listen to the segment.
I agree with what you're saying, Anna, but it's no different.
That is what then opens the door for the other jokes about GOP diversity. Listen, make all the jokes you want about GOP diversity, but not using the little black kid on his right knee as the reason to make those jokes.
But you cannot use a baby to do that. They were using a baby in order to bring attention.
We could argue that they were using a baby to draw attention to their political progressivism. It's the same thing the right does when they go and they make fun of Hillary Clinton for going into a black church in Selma and pretending to clap for a beat.
No one should use their family members in political pictures. No one in family pictures. So it should just be Mitt Romney and his wife and none of their kids and none of their grandkids.
No, you can bring your kids in. De Blasio just brought his kids in and no one said anything was wrong with it. It's okay to bring your kids in, but we have a right to say if it's exploitative. We have a right to have a little bit of fun as long as you're not mean to the kids.
I gotta go. Thank you. Thank you. We appreciate it. Still to come.